More than 1 million demonstrators in the center of Santiago. It could be the largest protest so far in Chile's uprising to demand sweeping change. Ecuador's indigenous movement sets up a people's parliament to discuss a new economic model for the country. And racial tensions tear apart South Africa's main opposition party. Its first black leader is forced to resign. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Camila Escalante. Chilean protesters have gathered again in the center of Santiago in what may be the biggest demonstration so far in the last 8 days of an uprising against the government and its neoliberal policies. A huge crowd, estimated at 1 million or more, is packing Plaza Italia and the surrounding area. Despite President Sebastian Pinera's attempts to make concessions, the protests just keep growing. People streamed in from all corners of the capital. They no longer want palliative measures, but sweeping change through a constituent assembly. They are also demanding an immediate end to the repression, which has cost at least 17 lives so far. Our correspondent Alejandro Kirk is at the protest in Santiago.
Well, you can see around myself, rarely such a consensus has been achieved in this country, maybe in the struggle against Pinochet. These masses have no bosses, they have no organization, they have no leadership, but yet they have a destination, a new era for Chile. Pending against this is the military, is the government of Sebastian Pinera imposing a state of emergency every night, killing people, torturing, violating human rights. There are some initiatives. The trade unions already came up with some of them. New basic salary, minimum salary of $700, a minimum pension of $700, a new regulation for pensions and for social benefits. But the most important thing is a national constitutional assembly, a new constitution for the country to make over with the constitution left by Pinochet. The demonstration is just beginning. These people have been walking for hours just to get here at 5 o'clock when they are supposed to meet. There will be no speeches, but there will be this enthusiasm that has the government of Pinera cornered without the initiative to do anything. The consensus here is Constitutional Assembly and Pinera out.
At the start of the day, the protest took a different turn. All major highways in the metropolitan region of Santiago were blocked by truckers and cab drivers. They came together under the slogan, "No More Tag," referring to the system used for highway tolls. The drivers say toll prices are abusive and demand that the government remove the tolls completely. The proposal for a constituent assembly is gathering force among Chile's protesters. On Thursday, thousands of people got together in community assemblies, known as cabildos, to discuss the future of the country.
These are students, scholars, and workers from the University of Chile. They are debating their role in civil disobedience and the start of a new era. This is one of the cabildos called by social movements to debate solutions to the crisis.
I think we will have to learn as a people. We have the will to learn and move forward in building a new country. This is part of a new road that the University of Chile is helping build, just like our constitution, which is a relic of the Pinochet era. So are our bylaws.
All by himself, the president now tries to materialize the economic measures he announced on Tuesday, and which, just 1 week ago, he considered to be absurd. What he doesn't know, or refuses to discover, is that on the streets and plazas, the only words people want to hear out of his mouth are, "I quit."
This is what we wanted to happen after 1988, but it never did. There needs to be a new constitution, the people demand it. We need to start the process now and listen to the people. For 4 years they have talked about the people, the citizen, the consumer, but everyone has come together against their lies, and I think that's incredible.
Students and scholars who specialize in human rights at the University of Chile set up a legal defense group, as they anticipate that state terrorism will increase. This bullet found near the Students' Union is part of mounting evidence.
We have a specific case of a person who was missing for 4 days. In the case of torture, we have found different cases in which citizens have been attacked with the goal of injuring them or punishing them.
Meanwhile, the number of victims as well as people's anger continued to rise. In this military base, a girl was crucified, but neighbors remained steadfast in their fight.
Hospitals and clinics have been overflowing with injured, especially people who got hit with rubber bullets or were attacked by police. They are firing at people's faces. These attacks are not meant to safeguard public order. Police and military have the goal of injuring or even killing people.
Every day, doctors ratify the growing number of murders, injured, and of signs of torture.
In emergency services, we have registered 600 people seriously injured after the protests, of which half of them had bullet wounds. These people are protesting peaceful, and yet this is their response. But what's worse is that their injuries are permanent, as at least 50 were left blind after being shot.
The voice of Victor Jara, the singer who was tortured and then shot dead in 1973, multiplies on the streets, and especially at night. Despite all the threats and violence, a strange joy permeates all of Chile.
Ecuador's main indigenous organization, CONAI, is setting up a parliament of peoples to discuss an alternative economic model for the country. The session to create the parliament began with a ceremony of purification, as is common in meetings of the indigenous movement. The initiative comes as talks with the government to draw up a new economic decree have so far made no progress. The government was forced to withdraw its previous decree after an uprising lasting 12 days brought the country to a standstill.
We have called this meeting to work, to think and discuss, to debate a very important process, which is a new economic model for our country, an economic model which can really build, or allows us to build, a plurinational state. Many people, many ministers and governors think that if they write, "This is the toilet" in Quechua, Ixpanauku, then that is plurinational. But that is not a plurinational state. A plurinational state means living in peace, with democracy, where we all have freedom and we all take decisions about the destiny of our people. So today we are going to work with one single objective. We are going to set up and develop this parliament. A popular parliament, a people's parliament, a parliament of all the social sectors, a parliament of the Ecuadorian people.
Racial tensions in South Africa's main opposition party have changed the country's political landscape. This as the party's first black leader resigned this week, saying the party is no longer what it used to be. Matuba Matlashi reports.
South African politics changed when a party seen as a party for white interest elected its first young and black leader. Mmusi Maimane gave the Democratic Alliance the image of a party with ambitions to govern South Africa, but all that changed this week.
That in order to continue this fight for the vision I strongly believe and the country I so dearly love, I will today step down as leader of the DA.
While Helen Zille is one that handed over the baton to Maimane, she still had influence in the party, and her comeback to active politics is the reason why the party lost 3 senior, mostly black leaders in just 1 week. Those resignations may shrink black support for the party because of her conservative views. The one view that caused outrage was when she tweeted that colonialism wasn't all that bad.
Change is never easy. Sometimes it can be scary. Change requires that we leave behind everything we've become used to and step into a place we've never been before.
Change never really came for the Democratic Alliance, and this worked directly against the non-racial party agenda that Mmusi Maimane championed during his tenure as leader of the opposition. There were still South Africans who did not trust the official opposition party, even with a black leader. But now, with the return of an older white leader back in the fold, the black support base is expected to shrink.
South Africa was once known as the Rainbow Nation, and that's when Nelson Mandela was campaigning for reconciliation between black and white people. But today, the racial tensions are evidence that this country is far away from the path of social cohesion. I'm Matiwa Matlachi in Pretoria, South Africa for Telesur.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again in a minute.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. Telesur documentaries. Sundays. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. After being ousted as leader of the People's Democratic Movement, or PDM, Montserrat Premier Donaldson Romeo said he would contest the general elections as an independent candidate. In a radio interview on Thursday night, the Premier said that he made the decision as he felt his mission was not over. Romeo was expelled in an internal election earlier this month, 24 hours after he named November 18th Election Day. He was succeeded by Communications, Works, Energy, and Labor Minister Paul Lewis. Romeo was first elected to Parliament as an independent candidate in 2011.
As a full member of CARICOM.
The 18th summit of the non-aligned movement is underway in Baku, Azerbaijan, where Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro will hand over the pro tempore presidency of the 120-country forum to his Azerbaijani counterpart, Ilham Aliyev. During his speech at the opening of the summit, President Maduro highlighted the challenges Venezuela has overcome since 2016, when he took over as chairperson of the non-aligned movement.
The period in which we have held the pro tempore presidency has been a difficult and tumultuous one, marked by uncertainty and the presence of monumental challenges, as well as by the imperialist policies of some superpowers that want to hurt the sovereignty and independence of nations, who want to attack peace, human rights, and our own development. In Venezuela, an example of how bad these aggressions can be is the intervention of hegemonic nations that, by using coercive unilateral sanctions, enforce blockades and threaten military intervention in order to force regime change. But it's Venezuela, a small and peaceful country from where 200 years ago a handful of men and women, led by the liberator Simón Bolívar, set off to seal the independence and freedom of an entire continent. Our people are a living example of resistance and unbreakable faith in a peaceful future. With great humility, we can say we have faced off against the most brutal empire in the history of humanity, with our unbreakable sovereignty and our ever-present disposition to remain free forever.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has defended his national security strategy following a number of criticisms by former presidents and right-wing media of his handling of a recent outburst of violence in the state of Sinaloa.
On the streets of Culiacán, capital of northern state of Sinaloa, the reinforcement of security is clear. Days ago, 230 elements of the special forces of the Mexican army and 196 paratroopers arrived.
Yes, we are using more elements here in the city to try and protect lives.
The residents are trying to go back to normal after violence was unleashed by the attempt at detaining Ovidio Guzman Lopez, son of the former leader of the Sinaloa cartel, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. However, the operation, which was ordered in order to extradite him, was stopped to avoid a massacre.
The walls have holes. Since yesterday we have been fixing this because it looks like a war took place here.
97% of Sinaloans support the stoppage of this police operation, a belief echoed by experts like Jorge Castaneda Zavala, who talks about a change in the way of fighting insecurity.
Their leaders appear to still be the focus of the justice system, to stop their illicit dealings, but over the years we have seen this is a fallacy, because after capturing the leaders, their business continues, they actually become stronger.
However, on social media, divisions over this topic is apparent. Voices from former president from the Conservative Party, Acción Nacional, like Vicente Fox and Felipe Calderón, argue that the government showed weakness with a problem that increased during their own administrations.
They weren't actually fighting against organized crime. They weren't going against money laundering. They weren't standing up to white-collar crime, nor to the causes of poverty and inequality, which allowed drug traffickers to thrive.
President Andrés Manuel López Obrador defended his peaceful strategy and noted that 50% of the deaths during the so-called war against drug trafficking were registered between 2006 and 2012 during the 6-year term of Felipe Calderón.
During the closing campaign rally of the Frente de Todos party in Argentina, presidential candidate Alberto Fernandez once again questioned the neoliberal policies applied by President Mauricio Macri.
We have had 4 years of worries in Argentina. We have seen the closure of 43 companies per day. Between retirees or the banks, we choose the retirees. Between public education or the banks, we choose public education. Between public health or the banks, we choose public health. And between the workers or the banks, we choose the workers.
And the vice presidential candidate Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner stressed the importance of the upcoming vote on October 27th.
This is not just an event to say empty words so that you vote for us. We are not that. We are here as part of the Frente de Todos because we are men and women who have convictions. We are closing a historic cycle for a country that will never again fall into the hands of neoliberalism. We want to avoid more pain for Argentinians. That's why we are together today, to say never again to these policies. Never again.
Meanwhile, during the closing rally of the Juntos por el Cambio party, President Mauricio Macri insisted that voting for him is voting for a better country.
Today, I want to ask you, and I want to hear you answer loud and clear, so that the entire country can hear. Do we want to vote for honesty? Do we want to confront criminal gangs and drug trafficking? Do we want an independent justice system? Do we want to say no to impunity? Of course we do, and it's because we do that we'll vote together on Sunday.
Between December of 2015 and the second quarter of 2019, Argentina's external debt increased by $113 billion. Under the rule of President Mauricio Macri, Argentina's debt with the International Monetary Fund has increased as well, currently standing at 93% of the country's gross domestic product.
2 years after an exhaustive process of debt relief during the Kirchner's administration, Mauricio Macri's government signed a new loan from the IMF to the amount of $50 billion and extended it afterwards to $57 billion more. This is the highest amount the IMF has ever loaned to a country.
The main reason to impose political and economic measures on the people, back in Argentina's history, the external debt increased enormously during the military dictatorship, where there was a genocide. All governments have tried to pay that huge debt since then. So this debt has an illegitimate and deceitful background. It was made only to put the country under the control of multinational corporations and banks.
And once again, the IMF puts conditions on Argentina's policies.
They will demand more labor flexibility, new labor reforms to lower working conditions, making labor force cheaper in order to benefit multinational corporations. They will also ask for a pension reform that would allow them to increase the age of retirement. And of course, they will continue making business using public funds with the big banks, with the big economic groups, with Donald Trump's investment funds, with the European Union, with the IMF and the World Bank.
From the $44 billion dispersed by the IMF, 30 billion will be used to finance capital outflows, despite such an act being prohibited by the IMF's rules.
The external debt should not be seen from one point of view only. It actually has two phases. On one phase, there's the debt contraction, which is common here in Latin America. On the other hand, there is the immediate outflow of capital. Many times that debt is only there to finance the outflow, and then the time comes when the people demand those outflows to be paid back.
According to Néstor Ferreira, the government put up the country's natural resources and state-owned companies as a guarantee for the loan.
Uruguay is also getting ready for general elections on Sunday, as citizens will head to the polls to elect a new leader to run the country for the next 5 years. Uruguayans will decide whether to extend the rule of the left-wing Broad Front Party led by former Montevideo Mayor Daniel Martinez, or give their vote to the right-wing National Party led by Senator Luis Lacalle Pou. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dot in the eye. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Police in Iraq have used live ammunition to disperse thousands of protesters in Baghdad as anti-government demonstrations resumed after 3 weeks. According to reports, at least 2 people have been killed and more than 360 were injured. Demonstrators are calling on the government to address high unemployment rates, poor public services, and corruption. Around 150 people were killed by security forces in a confrontation at the start of the month. But despite violent attacks by security forces, protesters remain undeterred. In the southern city of Nasiriyah, a number of them broke into the provincial government building and set it on fire.
We're not asking for electricity, we're not asking for water. These are legitimate rights which the government should provide. We're calling firstly today for the government to resign and for the constitution to be changed.
October is Creole Heritage Month, and it's the epicenter of culture for the French Caribbean islands, Guadeloupe and Martinique, and also for those that were colonized at one time by the French, such as St. Lucia, Haiti, and Dominica. In these countries, the French culture is still evident in the Creole language, food, and traditional costumes. And together with the African heritage, it has helped form a unique mix. Apart from the street parties and delicious Creole cuisine, the highlight of Creole Month in St. Lucia is Zunai Kwaoli, which translates to Creole Day. And over in Dominica, a grand music festival will take place dedicated to the advancement of global Creole culture and music. On this day in 1983, U.S. President Ronald Reagan ordered U.S. forces to invade the Caribbean island of Grenada in an attack labeled a war crime, according to the Geneva Convention. Operation Urgent Fury, as it was called, saw over 7,000 U.S. troops storming the tiny island, killing and injuring hundreds of Grenadians. Reagan claimed the invasion was intended to rescue U.S. medical students in Grenada amid disputes among the ruling party leadership. It was in reality an aggressive, deadly strike to silence Grenada's socialist revolution led by then Prime Minister Maurice Bishop and to thwart the spread of socialism to other Caribbean countries. Bishop's vision for Grenada was of a small country standing tall and proud in the Caribbean region and in the world. 1 week before the invasion, he was arrested and then executed along with many of his close associates. Let's take a look back at what the revolutionary Grenadian leader had to say about the U.S. hostilities.
The real reason for all of this hostility is because some perceive that what is happening in Grenada can lead to a new socio-economic and political path of development. They give all kinds of reasons and excuses, some of them credible, some utter rubbish, and say that also made us very dangerous. And that is that the people of Grenada and the leadership of Grenada are predominantly black.
And we leave you with some moving video from Chile as protesters gathered outside of La Moneda presidential palace earlier in the day. They sang an iconic song by Victor Jara, the singer who was murdered during the military coup in 1973.
Discover the cultural diversity that defines a continent. The place where art and tradition are part of the same nucleus. Artistic expressions, values,